Good afternoon. Thank you for ET Health World for organizing this webinar on health, specifically on women's health. Health by itself does not enjoy a good position under the sun as a topic, which is, which is still something that seems to be at the bottom of what we discuss on everyday time. It's more consumerism, it's more jobs, it's more infrastructure. Health somehow seems to be at the bottom of the pyramid, and more so women's health. Today specifically we're talking about insurance for women's health and how insured women are. And before I start, I want to kind of define what I mean by insurance. Insurance does not necessarily mean a product. Insurance would mean that women need to look at their own health and insure themselves socially, mentally, financially, and of course by also becoming consumers of health. And I'll take you through some slides which give you some data and also give you the current situation in terms of what products are available, what disease management programs are available, and what we could do to better the situation. I would also like to spend a little time, when we talk through these slides today on some distinctions that we've been able to gather between urban and rural health. The tactics and the strategy maybe need to be differently designed. We may not have all the solutions today as we go through this webinar. The data could be slightly sketchy, and I'll take you through why we believe the data could be sketchy. It could be far better, and we hope that the next time we have a webinar by next year, we have a lot more data on it. Now, let me go to the first slide, which is a cartoon that I find very interesting. And that's called a rare condition called good health. And I'm saying that because if you look at women's health data that we've managed to gather, we've realized that there's no clear data on how many women are healthy, unhealthy, and we believe that the access to healthcare, treatments available for women, products designed for women, are all skewed in the favor of men. The ratios, obviously, men have more such access and better products for health. Now, if we go to the first slide, which talks about 4 key things about life expectancy between men and women, between serious inequities in access to healthcare for women. Access to healthcare is uneven and skewed against women, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about hospital admissions between male and female. Now, worldwide, the average life expectancy at birth is about 69 years for male and 74 years for female. However, interestingly in India, while it's getting better, we must note that the men and women here are very close life expectancies at almost about 67 years for women and about 70 years for men, suggesting that there are systemic problems with women's health in our country. The current women's health agenda in India continues to focus almost exclusively on sexual and reproductive health. So it's maternal health, it's pregnancy, it's post-pregnancy, and infant health, part of maternal health actually, and does not reflect a life course approach and disregards the importance of NCDs. Now, the reason I'm saying NCDs is these are non-communicable diseases, which means they're chronic in nature and they're lifestyle diseases. And you have the burden for this disease has changed dramatically for women, and these have become the leading cause for death and disability in women, killing more than 18 million women per year globally. This is a global data. Getting this data for India is, again, like I've said, it's to get chronic data is difficult in India, and then to kind of bring it down further into women and men. We do have them, but I would rather stay away from them because, like I've said, there's a lot more data on reproductive health. If, for example, we even take, let us say, the male and female admissions in a hospital, there was an analysis by All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi, which reveals a significant gender bias in health-seeking behavior. You have, for every 1,000 male members admitted to hospitals, you have only 712 female admissions. It's almost a 70%, about 70% of it is women, 70% is female, and 1,000 men. which get admitted. This gender ratio was much worse for cardiology and eye treatments, where we find it to be 442 and 571 to 1,000 male admissions. These statistics suggest that there are some serious inequities in the way healthcare is accessed for women. Now, the one important thing that we need to understand also, that socially, and I'm going to say this quite often in my slides, social and culturally women have somehow tend to be caregivers, take care of the male members of their home, but really don't invest too much in their own health. We are now moving on to the next slide, which talks a little bit about, again, the current status of diseases that affect women in India. Now, a lot of women suffer from HIV, TB, malaria, acute respiratory problems, cardiovascular, which is somehow seen as a male domain. A lot of women actually have cardiovascular diseases, cancer. Interestingly, HIV, which is known, or rather has this myth that it affects men, is actually higher for women than it is for men. At 39% of HIV infections are women. Now, this infection could again be for two main reasons. One is lack of education and healthcare awareness, but more importantly, lack of access to contraceptives such as basic need of healthcare, that is condoms. Now, I'm going to move on a little bit from here to a very important point when I talk about healthcare, which is the mental health care. If you see, depressive disorders account for close to 41.9% of disability, as compared to men, is about 29.3% among men. Now, one of the reasons could be that women, again, like I said, are considered that they need to be resilient, they need to be strong, they're not supposed to talk. Forget about physical health. I mean, if they speak about mental health, they're branded as witches in the rural area. So there's a huge social cultural stigma attached to mental health, and more so if a woman says that she's depressed. But one must note here that postpartum depression, menopausal depression, depression during hormonal changes affect women far more than they affect men. And I'm not talking of genetic illnesses here. That comes up because of the way women's metabolism works. Now, if you look at other diseases, interestingly, if you look at autoimmune, if you look at emotional stress, if you look at psychological diseases put together, there's a lot of data that women too are probably equally or more affected by men. Now, like I've said, the big gap in our system today is also the data collection, and this necessarily does not mean women's health. Overall health as such suffers from a lot of data collection issues. More so, we realize that the accurate details of these leads to another startling fact, that the recorded numbers do not reflect the ground realities. There isn't much investment on research and data purely for women's health. So it's a lot of analysis and a lot of assumptions that make us say, how do we focus? And so focused communication, focused interventions become a problem when there is no clear research that is conducted for women. Now, I want to come to another very interesting point, and it's a disturbing point actually, even when we're sitting in 2017 and we're talking about women's rights, we're talking about women's health, right to health. There's one point in data that really disturbs me, and I'm sure most people hear this, that 70% of non-pregnant women and 75% women who are pregnant women are anemic. Now, one of the main drivers of malnutrition is gender-specific selection of distribution of food resources, which means food is distributed unequally between men and women, and hence malnutrition is a very big cause of concern for women's health and anemia in this country. Now, I'm just going to go to slide number 4, which was conducted. It was a national sample survey organization. They have connected some work, and the work is talking a little bit about chronic ailments between urban and rural, and male and female. Now, if you look at you see the women, obviously it's very clear, the graph in front of you clearly shows that whether it is rural or whether it is urban, women are falling far more sicker than men. Women are ill and women are chronically ill, and this is a very big, this disease burden becomes even more important in the context that women are caregivers and fundamentals of the family foundations. So if you have women having chronic diseases, you have a larger issue at hand. A couple of reasons we've kind of gathered is nutritional deficiency, which I just covered, leading to anemia, lack of exercise, increase in stress levels. Somehow, if you see most targeted interventions, targeted campaigns, talk about men, talk about how men are stressed, men are caregivers, men have more heart attacks, all these are myths. There's a huge increase in stress levels of women. There's also, in parallel, we must understand, women outlive men. So there's a rise in women's lifespan, but not as much as it is globally. But still there is an issue because you have chronic ailment and a rise in women's lifespan, which means you have women who are sicker but who will live longer, which means there's a disease burden and there's going to be a problem for their own health and obviously future of this country. Now I'm coming to the most important slide of today, which is I think what we need to focus on today, and I'm going to say how insured are women today. Now interestingly, coming from almost 12 years in health insurance and healthcare consulting, pharma and policy, I actually, when this topic was something that ET Health World offered as an opportunity, I was hoping we get some data, because this data is something that's very difficult, and I'll come to what I mean by that. Is in 2016 ICICI Lombard survey, and that was the only survey that we could find, said that 39% of 1,009 women were covered under a health cover, out of which 22% relied on policies purchased by their male relatives or employers. Now this is an interesting point, because when you buy insurance, there's a certain level of consumerism, and that's important. Simply because if consumers don't drive and participate in products, the ultimate products that they consume, you are not going to have enough products for women, and I'm going to come to that in the next point. If you look at women here, even if they are covered, 22% is bought by their male relatives or employees, which means women are not consuming enough health insurance, and that's a concern. Because when we talk about women's financial independence, we obviously want women to progress and invest in their own financial independence. It also means independence from diseases and to be healthy. So buying health insurance should become a part of women's financial planning. Now let's look at a current basket. There are two main issues of the current basket. One is there is a B2B piece and there is a B2C piece. Now let me talk a little bit about the B2C piece. The products that are in the market which women consume, and let's look at some insurance products that are available, is there are no specific products for women's health. So you have either a critical illness cover that you can add on, you may have one add-on product, but there is no one comprehensive plan for women's health, whether it means starting from, let us say, the time they become women till, let's say, about a 70-year age. There is no one product that covers different stages of women's health. Unlike men, women go to different health stages where there's menopausal, there is menstrual, there's premenstrual, then there's menopausal, and then there is pregnancy. There are so many stages in a woman's life that also involves a lot of their reproductive organs. Hence, there's no one comprehensive product. However, there is one product which one of the insurer offers, which covers breast cancer, fallopian tube cancer, uterine and cervical cancer, ovarian and vaginal cancer. Interestingly, it also covers burns, and there is some data to show that women have more accidents related burns than men. Not from occupational, I mean accidental, could be, and there are reasons for that. We're aware of those social reasons for that. One of the issues that we face today is that the B2B products, and the reason I'm saying B2B is important here, when you create a future basket of products for women, it needs to be innovative and it needs to be customized, and that cannot be done by a insurer, because this is a collaborative effort by pharma companies, by insurance companies, by medical diagnostic firms, by health checkups, and by women themselves. I'm going to quickly go on to health checkups. Interestingly, you'll realize only 25% of women, and we got this from one of the leading diagnostics of India, who undergo regular medical checkups, and this does not include pregnancy, sonography, and the regular pregnancy checkups. I'm talking about pure medical health checkups. Only 25% of women actually go through regular medical checkups. The other interesting thing would be if medical checkups can be incentivized, if there can be some innovation added to it by, let us say, women who undergo health checkups, they get, for example, tracking apps and tools developed for women to be able to monitor their health through the year and to be able to see how they are from point A to point B. That would be a better incentive than offering discounts on healthcare on health checkups. So that is one thing. Very interesting piece of data I found on health monitoring as I talk about health monitoring tools is that women tend to use more health monitoring tools than men. The PwC EIU report also reports that females comprise about 62% of the population that uses apps, which is great for us, because if that happens, we can have more and more data on women's health, and hopefully that will drive more products and more consumption. Now, if I'm acutely aware of one thing over here as we talk about is the disease management that companies have, whether it's pharma, whether it's doctors, whether it's health companies. I think it becomes extremely crucial that women need to get on to disease management programs, which means you have structured programs for diseases that are autoimmune, depression, migraine, osteoporosis. All these affect women day to day, and these are lifestyle diseases. They interrupt your daily healthy lifestyle, but women somehow don't tend to get on them. There is no compliance to medicine, there is no compliance to monitoring this, and this is very important, and this is something that needs to be self-insured. I call this self-insured because women need to ensure that they take care of their own health. And there are such products available. There can be more such products, but we definitely need to make sure that we get onto these disease management programs. Now, I'm very acutely aware of the fact that this addresses mostly urban population. It does not talk about the rural population, which is, of course, for all of us, a huge area of concern. Today, I'm just going to talk quickly about, I'm going to the next slide, which really talks about Tan Ki Baat. Now, sustained targeted communication for insurance has somehow been for the male. It says the male is a caregiver, the male needs to take insurance for his wife or for the home giver. He needs to take it for his children. I don't see a sustained campaign for a woman to buy health insurance for herself and for her family. And that's a huge problem, because you're actually talking to the men to constantly buy more insurance for themselves when we've already shown data that the ratio is skewed on men buy more insurance than women. So I think sustained targeted communication through insurance providers, through doctors, through healthcare companies, through hospitals, all of that be used more effectively, and having women understand that their health is important, they need to go out there and whatever they are saving, or if there's a savings plan that they have, health insurance definitely needs to be a part of that, apart from life insurance. Because life insurance is really for people who you leave behind. Health insurance is for your own self and for your family. Hence, I think it's extremely important that we target communication, rural communication that talks and makes people aware that health insurance is poorly consumed. And we hope that with consumerism increasing among women, we obviously have more and more women who will buy insurance, and more products that will come into the market that are for women specifically. With this, I think I'll conclude by just 3 messages that I want to talk to the audience. Is that I think today's topic is extremely crucial. My message is for every woman out there is very, very simple. It's basically take care of yourself. It's a really Tan Ki Baat. You should make sure that you buy more health insurance, become consumers of healthcare, get on disease management programs. Please participate in focus groups which allow women for you to participate, contribute to what products you need, and I think it's important that you all also remember that a healthy woman is also the foundation for a healthy country, and it is a fundamental right to take care of yourself. Thank you.
So we'll start with the questions. The first question is from Ratna. She asks, health-seeking behavior is directly proportional to economic independence. How can women be included into the financial decision for making health?
Okay, so the way I understand it is, I think she says that if it's financial independence, health is a part of purchasing your financial independence. And I think that's the point I was trying to make. I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but my answer would be, is that when we seek financial independence, we somehow think earning money, buying a house, buying life insurance, buying, let us say, buying a car insurance, having a savings account, all that is important. Somehow health does not seem to be a part of the financial independence that women, it's not a part of the basket actually. The second thing is, I think when health insurance is purchased, we need to also, allow women to participate in that decision. That's very important. If women don't participate in that decision, then you have products that are bought by men for women, which is good, but obviously that control needs to be handed back. So financial freedom, yes, includes consumerism of health.
Next question is from Rupa. Are there any specific insurances covering only women-related diseases and conditions?
Like I said, there is no one product today in the market. There's one by MetLife in Poland, which is for women's insurance, health. There's an insurance by MetLife. There's one with Bajaj Allianz, which is a critical care cover, which just, like I said, covers uterine cancer, vaginal, cervical, I think, and fallopian tubes. But there isn't any one product for women. And I think that also leads me back to the point that if you don't have enough consumerism, there will be no products. I think it's what comes first, chicken or egg.
Next question. Globally, how are health insurance companies communicating? Are there many women-related communications?
Right. Unfortunately, no. and that is very worrisome because the consumerism the consumerism that you see today, like I said, is targeted towards the men. Now, let me take an example of the ICICI Lombard, I think, Do the Difficult campaign, right? Interesting campaign. Spoke about health, spoke about how a man should go out there, get fit, because he's committed to his daughter, but it was about a man. It targeted the man's health again. So I am surprised that there is not a single clear communication campaign targeting both rural and urban women to take care of their own health. So it's a huge area that which we need to talk about, because that's something that, see, as long as you don't have targeted campaigns and targeted products, even to give rise to consumerism is going to be a problem. So I think very, very dismal state of targeted communication for women's health insurance, and not just in India, even globally.
Next question is from Pallav. As you told that there are only few insurance products cover women health. Can you please tell us how many of them and what is the coverage as percentage of women health insured?
Like I said, this is a fundamental, goes back to my data problem, right? So I've been saying that the data is very skewed. We don't have exact data, but what I can say, I do have some data here, which I think we said was 22% of the women, 39% of women are covered under health insurance, out of which 22% are bought by male employees. So I would say about 40% of women, if I would take a benchmark, I would say 40% of women buy health insurance. Now, are they specifically buying these women's products? 100% of them will be, those women's products will be bought 100% by women. Are they paid by women? That is a question. Now, that data I don't have, which is something that I would like to see, whether they are paid by women or they're paid by their male relatives. That is a data point that we need to get. Except the ICICI Lombard survey, we are not clear how many are paid by women or by men.
This next question coming from Prerna. Is it that women buy insurance and not health insurance?
Okay. So I think one question here is, it's an interesting question. I think women buy insurance. Now, women buy life insurance because it's tax. Somehow this whole thing of, the whole problem in India initially was Life Insurance Corporation, when it came, and it was the only monopoly at some point a couple of years ago, decades ago actually, was sold as a tax saving tool. Now, insurance is actually not as a tax saving tool. No, I mean, it could become one, but the premise that it's a tax saving tool or is a savings tool itself is wrong. An insurance product hedges you against risk. Now, starting from that premise, life insurance is bought for somehow for tax planning reasons or for reasons that are fundamental. They think, you can only, this is basically life insurance is paid to your family members after your death. We somehow are a fatalistic nation. Health insurance penetration has been also very low because we believe whatever happens to us is karma, and we do not want to buy anything that makes our life pleasurable and easily manageable as we are on this earth, as long as we are alive. So health insurance itself is poorly bought, out of which definitely women's consumption of health insurance is even more poorer. So you will see the penetration of health insurance overall is poor against life insurance. So women buy life, and it's very similar to men, but women buy life insurance, they buy car insurance, but very rarely you will see them buying health insurance for themselves. I think the focus I was trying to bring in my conversation was, if women become better consumers of health insurance, then having more women-related illnesses, women participating in focus groups, women purchasing more, targeted communication will lead to more comprehensive products for women. So today there are bits and pieces available. It's fragmented. The market is fragmented. So you will have add-on covers, you will have a one-off cancer cover, you have a one-off maternity with some complications cover. But the point is that there is no one product, and that could also, I'm going back again to my fundamental message for everybody, especially women, is unless they become better consumers of health overall, whether it's through health insurance, medical checkups, disease management, and invest in themselves, and of course have focus groups that work with product developers, you're not going to get products that are for women. So it's a basic demand versus kind of supply situation, and the sad reality is the demand is there by way of data. The disease data and the skewed ratios clearly show there's a demand, but till women tend to start consuming it or start investing in health insurance, going out there talking to see, the minute you become consumers, you tend to talk about the products that are not there or improvement of products. So what I'm trying to say is that shift needs to happen, and that can happen by many people. It's the insurance companies themselves, it's the medical companies, it's the diagnostic companies, it's the consumers themselves, it's also financial companies could be, and ultimately obviously it's the communication also which needs to target women.
Next question is from Kavita. Are checkups also covered in women's health insurance?
Yes, in some of them. They are covered in some. Not necessarily all, but some do cover health checkups. In fact, sometimes you're insured after a health checkup. So, it depends.
Next question from Bhavna. How do women get into disease management programs?
Right. So I think one of the things that we've seen that disease management programs somehow, unless it's a serious illness, okay, and there's a distinction here I'm making. Chronic disease management, that is lifestyle diseases like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, migraine, these require a management program because these are not life-threatening, but they are lifestyle-threatening. These are available through healthcare companies. They are now available through a lot of companies that are doing even home healthcare. For example, Portia, they are doing a lot of good work in disease management. They make sure you're compliant with your medicine, your diet, your nutrition. I think women need to get on those platforms. If we are women on the go, we want to be financially independent, we want to have great careers, we must use apps, tools and disease management programs to make sure that we manage our lifestyle in such a way that our diseases are under control, and this is possible.
Next question is from Rupa. The insurances, if bought, are not covering the majority of the claims, as the hospital charges double if insurances are used. So what you have to say about this?
Okay, just I think that needs another whole debate. It's another 6 slides, but I'll try to answer in a short way. I think a lot of, okay, so this, this is an interesting concept, so I have to go through a complete how insurance companies are in panel with hospitals and how there are rates and how, I can't comment on hospitals double charging, etc. But I think it's important, I want to point out one thing to Rupa who asked this question, is it's important to notice your cover. There's a fine print in your cover. Please read your fine print carefully because that clearly tells you what are you eligible for. And contrary to popular belief, most of the leading hospitals are cash driven. They are insurance driven. And this is another thing that people say you get onto a fever and they keep you for 4 days. That's again not true. They want a turnover of beds because they make more money on turnover of beds. So there are a lot of other complex issues here which I will not get into today. But one thing as a consumer of health insurance, I think it's important for us to read the fine line. Many times we go to the hospital, we ourselves do not know the fine print on our insurance. We don't know what's the room rent cap. We don't know if there's a cap on our ailments. We don't know if there's a cap on surgery fees. We don't know if there's a cap on doctor's fees, and then we run large bills. I think it's important to become smart consumers of healthcare, and if those are important to you, then please look for them when you're buying health insurance, because then you know which product offers what and at what charge. So I think that capping is important, and you must understand that when you buy, not after buying. So I think that's an important part.
We are taking our last question. This question is why and how coverage for women differs.
So So I don't think that's correct. The question itself is slightly flawed, but I'll answer it differently. Is that the question is not whether the coverage differs for women. The question here is, are we insured enough? Are there enough products for women, right? Your coverage will differ from male to female, to product, to what kind of cover you buying. So one company could offer a different cover, another company could offer a different cover. It could be differently priced. No, that's a different conversation. But here I think we are focusing today, and what we need to focus, I think there are two things. One, we are focusing on the need to focus, and why are we focusing? We are saying women live longer, women have same or more diseases than men. Women's diseases are slightly more complicated because of the metabolic way their bodies are in terms of reproduction and related diseases. Hence, we are saying that the data and research does not give us granular detail about this, about women's health, which we need definitely as we go out there and create better products for women. So I think that's the conversation. Coverage could differ from even a man to man and women to women, and that could differ from product to product. It has got nothing to do with women and men per se. And that, of course, how they arrive at the costing and pricing is an actual valuation. There are many things that come into it, many factors, including gender. So that's a different conversation.